Have been getting mixed messages all week, as you know, from the president, because earlier in the week he pulled the plug on negotiations. Then the next day he came back and said, well, he'd be in for targeted negotiations, targeted sectors like the airline sector. Then they suggested absolutely no way would they go for a big package. And then early this morning we hear, okay, now they are in for the potential for a big package. If that's confusing, imagine what it's like to be in the airline industry, whether you're an employee, 32,000 of them furloughed, or you are one of the CEOs begging for help. And to be clear, the CEOs are saying if we can get government aid, then we could hopefully bring back those furloughed employees. But you can't wait forever, right? They've been furloughed since October 1st. 32,000, as we mentioned. The issue also for the airlines is their revenues. Revenues are down up to 85%. I mean, it's not like they're just whistling by here. They're in serious trouble. Passenger levels down 70 to 75%. And so the airlines are also saying if we don't get money, not only will we not be able to bring the furloughed employees back, we may have to have other layoffs in the future. And oh, by the way, we may also be cutting service to smaller communities that we've been trying to serve through the pandemic, but we simply can't maintain that kind of an expense. So this is really critical for the airlines, but not just the airlines. It's everybody across the country, families, small business owners, schools, small governments, you name it. They're all hurting, and they are in desperate need of some help.
Indeed, Tom, thank you. CEOs begging for help, not exactly the vision of Oliver Twist, but they need real help. I want to go deeper and bigger in this conversation and bring in Danny Meyer. He's the founder of Union Square Hospitality Group, home to more than 20 New York City restaurants alone, and Andrew Ross Sorkin, New York Times columnist and, of course, host of CNBC's Squawk Box. Andrew, what do you make of the latest back and forth on relief?
Look, I think ultimately you need a big deal. The politics of a small deal are going to be vast, and you're going to be dealing with the politics of that for a very long time. If the airlines are saved, but small businesses are not, if small businesses are saved, but the unemployed are not given anything, if cities that are running into trouble aren't given anything, but big companies are, it just becomes a morass. And so you really do, from a political perspective, long term, I think we saw this in 2008 with the financial crisis when the banks were saved, but others weren't. We lived with that for 10 years, and I think we're seeing in our politics today. And so I think you do want an overall package. And frankly, I think that it is probably actually in both parties' best interest to do it. And I do wonder actually whether Democrats, oddly enough, will ultimately get blamed if something doesn't happen.
If you just help big business, get ready for Occupy Wall Street times a million. Danny, how do you feel about that? Because you have been fighting for the standalone bill for restaurants for months. Are you frustrated that suddenly the focus is on a bill to bail out airlines when millions of restaurant workers are out of work and hundreds of thousands of restaurants have already closed or they're on the brink of closing?
I'm not at all frustrated that airlines are a part of the package. I'm frustrated if restaurants and live music venues and bars and food stands and food trucks and caterers are not part of it. This is the not only the economic engine of our entire society, but it really represents the emotional health of our communities as well. You have no idea how much emotional healing people need right now. That happens in restaurants, or it doesn't. Think about the millions and millions of employees who are just getting jerked around every time there's a new tweet, every time there's a new about face, who are being caught in this political morass, as Andrew just said. And it's time restaurants know how to plan. Cold weather's on the way. Outdoor dining is on the way out. A place like New York City has 25% capacity indoors mandated by government. That's impossible to make money at, but it's a lifeline. And what's great about the Restaurants Act, which has bipartisan support, it's been supported by Democrats and by Republicans, is that it would provide flexible funding for restaurants that compares their 2019 revenues to their 2020 revenues. And it is a big, big improvement on the PPP program, which we had back in March.
Andrew, we know that cases are on the rise in this country. We know that the weather is getting worse. If there is not another economic stimulus bill, What could this mean economically for this country? It was Jay Powell just a few days ago who was urging Congress to do something.
Look, I mean, this goes from being a liquidity crisis to a solvency crisis at some point. If, in fact, we go from a situation where we really go through a winter without any more stimulus, you're going to have a lot of businesses in trouble, and you're going to have a lot more people unemployed. I think there's probably a worthy debate to be had about how you target that money. I ultimately think, by the way, you're going to need a startup, or what I describe as a restartup fund, for a lot of businesses, especially in the restaurant and live events business, come spring and summer, hopefully, when those businesses have an opportunity to restart, because I think there's going to be a lot of restart funding that's going to be required to get there. And then the question, of course, is what do you do between now and then, not just for the owners of those businesses, but more importantly, for all of their employees?
Danny, just yesterday, the U.S. recorded 56,000 new cases. We hear all the time, if only restaurants could be open for indoor dining, can we increase capacity? Even if those rules are changed, people really aren't going to go and pack themselves into restaurants, given what it's like out there. So what's going to happen to the restaurant business if we don't get another package?
Well, it's going to go out of business, Stephanie. That's that. Look, restaurants have done a remarkably heroic job over these many months of being responsible citizens and keeping people safe. We know that if you're in a restaurant for an hour and a half or 2 hours, being served by a waiter, being taken to your table by a maitre d', face to face with people, 2 feet away from you, because obviously you can't eat and drink with a mask on, it's not the most safe environment. That said, what we're doing right now, I'm incredibly proud of. In each one of our restaurants, we're piloting a program with Clear, the company you know from airports, who has introduced a new product called Health Pass. So we can do safety checks every single day for our employees, knowing that they're healthy or they don't come to work. We also have amazing air filtration and purification systems, including ionization. We also have contact tracing for every single guest who comes into our restaurants. We have new flows at 25%. That means our restaurants are 75% empty. I know we can do this safely. And we need to. We need to start in a safe way. 25% is going to lead to 50% when we do it safely. And then ultimately, we've got to knock this virus down, and that takes all of us.
Indeed, it does. Danny, Andrew, thank you. And to any lawmakers watching, remember, this is Danny Meyer. He can afford to do that. Think about what it's like for your local diner or taqueria. They can't partner with Clear. They can't afford high-tech air purification systems. But I'm pretty sure you still want to have those restaurants in your hometown. Coming up next, it is Democrats' not-so-secret weapon, how a major fundraising haul translates to voter data in key battleground states. It's always about the data.